Turn our mics
Turn our
off.
phones off.
What got into Pete this wow?
Cause I got other things to
Got
do.
places
Yeah?
to go. Yeah, I do too.
Places to go, people to see.
Yep. Alright, phones are off. Shut up. Alright. It's like 1:03 right now. I don't even have my computer. Today is Thursday, April 11th, 2019. This is a work session for the Marquette Township Board. Roll call, Randy, please.
Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Wiegand.
Here.
Trustee Everson.
Here?
Trustee Marks.
Present.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Durant.
Here.
Staff planner Jason McCarthy will be here shortly.
Cool. Today we're going to talk about 5 acres over in the Schmewood Park area. A lot of times when we have agenda items, I think we all formulate some kind of opinion on how we feel about whatever the topic is. I like to think that we come with an open mind in case we can have a better discussion and not have something preordained. But I have to admit that I'm at a loss. I don't have a good or a bad or a good idea or a bad idea of what to do with this property. So I'm looking to you guys to give us some suggestions, or we put it off for another 6 months or a year. But I think we need to have some kind of closure to what do we want to do with this property. Even if it's just a direction to say, at some point, we would like to have XYZ there, right, and keep it. So, Randy, I think you guys are at the same time.
To start the discussion, our original intent on this property was to sell it, and the proceeds from that property, when we sold it, would go to pay this off. And I think that's where we should start, and that's our original intent that we sold the public on, and that's where we should go with it.
Plus, we've got that road to deal with, too. Dan, I think you had your end.
I agree with selling it. I got one question that just, I guess, came to mind, and I don't know what the legal answer to it is. Can it be divided?
Yes.
Perfect timing.
And if it doesn't sell at a 5-acre parcel, then let's divide it and try to sell it as smaller parcels and possibly get more money for it.
I did, Randy gave me his folder of notes on it, and I pulled up the appraisal. And this is from 2012, when we first started talking about it, and it's $579,000.
And I don't think it's went down since. I can't see the appraisal falling.
Then the,
Valuable piece of property.
right, especially being a corner. Then the update that Randy pulled from August of 2017 showed that most of the properties in that location, or in that area anyway, were $175,000 an acre, which is a little more comprehensive. So, is it worth more? Probably, but it's, like I always told my daughter, it's only worth what someone's willing to pay for it. But if that's our goal, that's a good direction to try to go with.
We have new interest in this property.
Okay?
And I'm not sure what's appropriate to discuss at this meeting.
That's up to you probably,
It is,
because it's
remember,
still a public meeting.
we are at a public meeting, so you might want to.
So I play hockey with a gentleman named Nick Boyle. Nick is the son of Dan Boyle, and Dan Boyle is the son of Judy Boyle.
Oh, grandson.
Nick married an Irish girl and moved to Ireland. He has dual citizenship with Ireland and the United States. He is a borderline genius. He came up with a process of making a 12-year Irish whiskey in 1 year. And he won an award in Ireland. It was a talent, almost like a talent search, okay, like an innovation award. The first year he took second place based on somebody else's invention. But he was called back last year and asked to reapply, in which he did, and he won. His whiskey has beat out Jameson and Bushmills in taste tests. he would like to develop a distillery on this property. He has financial backing. He's aware, we met with him last week. The site bodes very well. The use, which would be actually light industry because it's food processing, would be available through a special use permit in this zoning district, which is general business. The development itself is proposed to be a very authentic looking Irish structure with a tasting room and a restaurant. The 5-acre parcel that we have, geometrically, the shape of it is ideal for his plan. Now, this just happened last week. We also directed him to Mr. Oberstar and some of the property that he has that's not in the covenant area, which we are currently located in, because that would not be possible in the business park. And I just got off the phone with him minutes ago, and he said that the properties that he has been offered for development do not conform to what he's looking for, and this is his #1 spot. This would be a huge boon for not only that area, but for the township. He says that this has global implications. So Russia, if he could produce it right now, and he carries around bottles of it, it's called Irish Whitetail whiskey. And there's a website that I can bring up and show you that Russia right now would take 200,000 bottles if he could make it. So it's a really neat opportunity. Marquette does not have a distillery, but if you were to travel around to Nashville or some of the other kind of hot spots in the community, in the country, I think you'd find distilleries are really well received, and I'm sure John Marks can attest to that. But,
I'm waiting for the sample, so.
well, me too. Honestly, because we played the 6 a.m. hockey together, and he had emailed me a while back and said, I'm thinking about, instead, because he was going to do it in Ireland, but he wanted to bring his wife and young child back to the States and do it here in Marquette Township. He's from Trowbridge, lives in Trowbridge, grew up in Trowbridge, and I just think it's such a great opportunity for us if we can make it work. So I told him, because we were talking about the disposition of this property today, that I would bring that up to you guys to consider. So he has a full-blown marketing campaign, he has investors, he understands the scope of what his project is. He's estimating it to be around $2.5 million, which would include the purchase price. The purchase price that I discussed with him was in the $550 range for the property, which I believe is what I understood that the township board would be willing to accept. And I think the upside is much greater than just the sale of the property. I think it's a real tourist attraction. It's light industrial manufacturing, which is a land use that we would love to have, that's more sustainable in many cases than a 20-year big box store. I think we have the ability to have a long-standing product in the community that would be right from here. And you know what Black Rock's brewery's doing, you know what the Oradoc's been doing, Barrel and Beam. It's a hot market, and he is well poised. So he would have to tell you more about the chemistry that he realized when he started making his brand of whiskey. But it has something to do with, oftentimes these whiskeys are put into a barrel for a long time. And through that process, there are elements of that barrel that come into the whiskey. Well, he's able to do that in a shorter period of time. And it really revolutionized the game over there. And so he's being sought, over there, but he's chosen Marquette Township and coming back to the States with his Irish lass and his young daughter to conduct this business. So we're really excited about it. It's very preliminary. But if he didn't have the financial backing and he wasn't poised to commence the project, I wouldn't be talking so highly about it. But we're excited at the opportunity.
When is he thinking? Is this something he'd like to start tomorrow?
If the board would consider the sale of the property to him, then yes, he would be moving
right
forward.
away.
Mhm.
Dave?
I agree with what Dan and Randy say. I think we should continue to sell the property. That was the plan originally. And I think if there's an obstacle that keeps getting in the way, it's this board, because we tend to overthink the issue. We start putting all kinds of conditions and we start worrying about that road in the back and all that. And I think if it's, we should put the property for sale and we should sell it. And I remember the last time that, and I wasn't on the board then, but I was at the meetings where we discussed it before, and we actually talked, the outfit that wanted to,
It was Verdia Group.
yeah, Veridia, and we actually talked them out of it because they couldn't work out, in the board's opinion, the proper road access back there, and they didn't know if that was gonna work, and we just way overthought it, and we got way out of, the board got way out of their element of what they have expertise at doing. The board's expertise is to operate the township.
Well,
It's not to sell property. It's not to try and figure out if what somebody wants to put on a piece of property is gonna work. That's something that the potential property owner and planning and zoning work out. And I think we just need to decide, yes, we want to sell it, or no, we don't want to sell it, we want to do something else with it, and then just move on. We've got a price set on it, just be done with it.
Randy?
well, when the Verdia Group was here, in my opinion, they gave us a bad deal when they wanted us to develop the utilities at our cost. And they wanted it for a lot less than we wanted for selling price. I think Jason was here too, you remember that?
Yeah.
And I think we said 550, and if someone, and it's close to the appraisal. And I think we sell it, move on, use the proceeds as the board sees fit.
Yep.
And like I said, the original concept was to take the proceeds and pay this property off or building. We could still do that, or with our new directive of the fund balance, maybe we can build our 4-month fund balance up, which we don't have right now, and then move forward. But I think it's a great opportunity. He wants to buy it, more power to him. They'll create local jobs and
About 20.
yeah, and a nice use for that area, and win-win for both.
And I would think we need to even go a little further than that. We need to, if we decide that we want to sell it, then, okay. But we should say that, if we're gonna sell it, let this set for 30 days to see if this comes into anything that looks good, and after 30 days, we'll list it. But I don't think we should sit here and try and sell this thing by ourselves.
But we can, if this gentleman is interested, we don't have to go through a realtor, and we don't have to pay a commission on it.
No, we
We
can
can do
sell
all that
And that's all I'm saying.
through our lawyer.
That's all I'm saying, is put a 30-day window on it. If this comes to be something great, but if he starts dragging his feet,
Yeah.
whatever.
We'll just list
30
it.
days,
That's good.
30 days from now, we just list it.
Yeah.
And
And
the
then-
only difference that's gonna make to us is about 10%.
Hopefully not that much.
Yeah, and I hope you all can agree that, this property, and, we get a lot of calls on vacant properties and properties that are available to be developed. Being a chip shot or a pitching wedge from the highway is, the highest and best use is as commercially developed property. It's not as park property. I know that was talked about a little bit at the rec committee, using pieces of it as matching funds for future grants, but the property is highest and best use is as commercial developed property.
The taxes are better than a park property
And
also.
I don't think we should put any conditions on it about that road in the back. We should
Well, I was
just let
gonna
it
ask
see
about
We
what.
discussed
that,
that,
though. Yeah.
You
and
might
he would
want
like
that
to see
rule.
that improved, and that could be a condition of the purchase
Him and the
agreement.
rest of the township.
Well,
Either that or close it off. I mean, or
well, it would be
sell
his
it.
main access. He doesn't necessarily want access off of 492. He likes the access
be
where it
safer.
is. He needs a little bit of security on the west end because he's gonna have obviously barrels stored, and aging. And yeah, I think it's a great fit, and been working with him for a long time to try to get him to understand what could be just here in the township instead of over there.
How will this work with, interface with the Sunbird Park there? Will it have any,
Well, there would have to be some screening, of course, but what you're gonna see here is a structure that you've not seen before unless you've been to Ireland. I mean, it's a very unique, beautiful, architecturally structure. I think it kind of bodes very well, and it's, I hate to say it, but it's nicer than anything that's over there, is architecturally or aesthetically. So I think it'd be a good fit in buffering with the park there. I don't think it's gonna have really any implications other than maybe putting a trail from the park to the distillery.
So there, you don't see that there's any concessions like, okay, for the first 5, 10 years or something like that, taxes cut back or anything? That would
No, it's not a
part of
brownfield, it's not an obsolete property, we really don't have the ability as a township to abate taxes like a city does.
I just want to make sure it's out front.
No, he understands that he wants a valuable piece of property because it only makes his business more attractive.
So what about
Being closer to the
the adjoining corners? Is anything gonna happen, or semi-corners with John Deere or the carpet building that you could even say, or, I mean, because now we're gonna put this huge, beautiful structure in there. Maybe that'll evolve because of that.
Yeah, exactly. Like any other project that's kind of keeping up with the Joneses, if you put new siding on your house, chances are your neighbor's going to try to keep up with that. So we would hope that, yeah, that would parlay some other redevelopments. The Carpet Specialist property is very unique in that the geometry of that site is really difficult. There's really no rear yard. You only have the front and the sides. Plus it's adjacent to, so anything south or east of 492 there is zoned differently than it is north of that area. So that poses a challenge. I do understand that there's some interest in redeveloping the property on the corner, which is the former Michigan Sales, or I don't know what she's got in there now, interior decoration, but I believe that property is going to be redeveloped within the next couple of years.
That would be good.
Mhm.
That's a nice word.
Yeah, I mean, it's always an evolving thing, but I think with our design standards in place, you're gonna get much more aesthetically pleasing developments. And just staff working with developers to let them know what we expect goes a long way too, so that when it does get to the planning commission, a lot of those concerns have already been addressed.
John, or somebody had a hand up?
John has it.
I think at this meeting, we should communicate to the administration that it is a consensus of the township board at this meeting that they take action to make the 5 acres park property available for sale.
And put the discussion off for another 6 months.
Yeah, we could either put it on the next agenda, because she's working on it now, and make that a motion, or we can wait until.
All I gotta do is go to the next agenda and just basically have an agenda item and just say, we're putting it for sale, that's all.
But we can give them our
Yes.
consensus
Yes.
today.
Yeah, but I just didn't know if that compromises Jason at all, anything that you need to do. If you would want a motion or not, for us to wait.
You can't have a motion in today's
In
I know.
open session, yeah.
I know, but I'm talking about the next agenda.
If you would like it to be on the next agenda, that's fine, but I guess it would be the agenda item at that point at the meeting, you would say, Randy, or I'm gonna be here actually, Jason, we would like staff to present that property for sale in 30 days, provided that no action is taken from the interested party.
The only thing I was trying to solve, and we still haven't done anything with the Look Realty sign there, is to not have that crossover. If somebody, I mean, he's got the sign there,
I got a
we already
chainsaw.
told Randy to have him take it down. His excuse was he couldn't because of the snow. And I said, is that gonna compromise us somewhere down the line? Somebody's gonna see the sign, we don't have a contract with them. It was just too disjointed for me.
There's a
So-
Look Realty sign on the
Yeah.
property? Oh, we'll
Yeah.
have building grounds take that down today.
So, that's what I'm thinking. If the 30 days, I like, that's a good idea, to put it up, so that we
Yeah.
don't have that,
Don't worry about even
Mix
taking it,
up.
they're like, cut it down, lay it out.
That's
because
right.
he's ended up having it up there for a year.
Well, it's
just free
advertising.
advertising for him, it's not fair. He should have taken it down right away. You can unbolt it or unscrew it from the post and leave
It'll
the
be gone
post.
today.
I'll make him, yeah.
Yeah, I
I'll just,
didn't like
we'll
that.
bring it here and, or bring it to Public Works and he can pick it up there.
Okay, Dave?
I would suggest that the consensus to sell the property doesn't have any preconditions about the road. Whatever
Yeah, I agree.
that turns out is the way it turns out, but no preconditions.
Is that all right?
I think that's
with
money,
everybody?
money's it up.
And it's supposed to be for sale anyway, so we don't have to even.
Come
suggest
get a
it.
road out of it too.
If he wants to use it for his access, that's gonna be his privilege.
Yeah, that's part of the
Well,
property.
it makes sense, to keep that circulation open. It only brings more people by his store, if you will. So I think he sees it as an advantage as well.
And I'm sure he would improve it himself, because he's gonna want a
Because
decent
it-
driveway
Because
there.
it'd be his.
Because it's
Yeah.
his, yes.
Well, that could be something that could be discussed, you know, in the purchase agreement, but yeah, I mean, if there's an opportunity there to gain a potential public right away, or if you wanna keep it public, I think, or private, I think that can be
Yeah.
hammered out later.
Because would we have that same issue like we do with the dental, Alpha Dental? Because that's her road and she's griped about it for years, that the apartment complex is using it and they shouldn't be, and she's been to the road commission, she's been to me.
Yeah,
She's
that's a
been
private,
planning and-
that's a private drive.
So would we not have
Township
that
has
same
no-
issue over here?
Township has nothing to do with
It
it.
has nothing to do with it, yeah, that's,
All right,
it's the
Maybe we
longest
should
private road I've ever seen.
revert it over to the road chairman, and he can take it up in his committee and discuss it, if additional traffic for Brooklyn Road or something like that.
Well, keep in mind that the, Mrs. Wiggins
You've been out too long, haven't you?
developed and purchased and developed that property knowing full well what the access was going to be. I know she had an issue with the sign that got knocked down, but yeah, that's not.
well, I mean, it's similar, I just didn't, you know, because I think we need that connection back there.
Yes,
That's
and I,
just me, but-
I
Well, I
expressed
think
that.
he wants it too, he wants it too.
Yeah,
He understands the circulation pattern there that could occur and how different people could get to his business.
Yeah, I'm just suggesting that we don't
Muddy it up.
muddy it up
I
with a bunch of
agree, yeah.
preconditions,
I
whether
understand.
we're gonna make that a right of way or turn it into a road. I think that's all that it does is add cost to the township for no particular reason. I think if somebody wants to buy it for $550,000, they're gonna have to submit a site plan anyway.
Perhaps a PUD in this case.
I mean, we should just
Let it go.
let it go. We should not be all involved in this so much.
It's a win-win for both. Get
I
rid of
don't,
it.
yeah, I don't believe, and I never have, of local government being a real estate agent. I just don't think it works that well.
yes, sir.
I think, just listening to the discussion, I think all we have to do is say, the property is still for sale, period,
Period.
and go forward at that point in time.
Bring us your submittals, get in line.
And the price that was set in the past was $550. It's for sale at this price.
No,
go
it's
forward.
$575, we would accept $550, you don't start at $550, then you end up with $525.
If he offered me $550, we're taking it.
I know that, but, I mean, if you make a blank statement, you're saying the price is $575. We agreed earlier that we would probably accept that, but you don't put your accept out there first.
Well,
Why don't
Just
you
the fact
do
that it's
this?
for sale,
And you should always do this regardless, but if you have a piece of property and somebody has a development proposal, you need to take into consideration what's gonna be constructed on that site when you look at what the offer for sale price is. Because if he puts $2.5 million worth of improvements on it, over 20 years, what does that mean in the sale price of that property to the township? So it's just, you know, if somebody's gonna put a Mr. Tire on there or something, that's different than a, you know, potentially world-class distillery, in my opinion, anyway.
well, also too, if we put it for sale, and I'm not saying this, but, you know, I know in the past, 906 was kind of thinking of that parcel too for expansion.
Right.
Who knows, that might jump them too and say it's for sale and, you know, we're gonna take probably.
This would be a
the-
better mix for it, though.
It is, but I
Yeah,
mean, if they
better
wanted to
use.
buy it, I mean, it's,
Well, in fact, it is for sale currently.
Yeah.
It just isn't listed with anybody,
correct,
so.
yeah.
The only thing we're looking at is give it 30 days to see if this comes to fruition. If it don't, we're gonna relist it with somebody.
Well, we will do, staff with our mapping capabilities, et cetera, will do a world-class marketing campaign on the property, if it doesn't go in the 30 days. Or if something at least isn't started within that 30 days. Social media, we'll get the news involved, people will know quickly.
I think whatever contact you have with this individual and that indicating that the direction the board going, and the property's for sale, period. And that can go forward and that.
Okay, great.
Put it on the next agenda and we'll move forward from there.
We don't even have to put it on the agenda.
We just need to.
Well, it's already for sale.
It's
It's already
already
for
for
sale,
sale.
so I guess we don't have to put it
No,
on the
just-
agenda.
Just do it during your privileged comment or other comments by board members, just somebody mention it.
Well,
and then
supervisor.
that'll-
The supervisor would be in her comments, actually, she
See.
could mention it, but.
we
All I
don't
have to do is
reiterate.
say it's still for sale.
Property's still for
Property's
sale.
still for sale. You can drop it at that.
I will call him immediately upon conclusion of the meeting and let him know that he may move forward.
And your concessions
Yeah.
would be samples, so.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping.
Well, and
But he put it up on the table in the conference room, he's like, well, do you want to taste it? I'm like, I can't taste it here. If you can come back at 5, we'll go down to the community room. and-
Yeah,
well, I know when Veridia Group came to us, they weren't gonna give us $5.50.
No, they wanted all kinds of,
we had set
Concessions and everything else.
$5.75.
And
yeah.
they- I
Plus
think-
they wanted the concession.
that's how Brady operates.
Yeah, they wanted it for a real cheap deal, and then they'd redevelop it and sell it
Look
for a
what the
lot
city's
more.
done for
Yeah.
them and
That's
their
just it, yeah.
partnerships.
They're used to that. And that's all right,
They're
if that
not-
works
That's
for
fine.
them.
They're not done yet, Jason, with that hospital.
No, I know.
Just tell them we're accepting deposits this afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah, the property,
Preferably in 1 ounce shots.
I got the big ones. though.
Delivered to our homes. So we
down
don't.
the property's for
don't reflect.
sale, if you
No,
want to
that'd be
move
nice to
forward,
have
go
that there.
forward.
Well, we've got another proposal for you coming up Tuesday, which you'll see in your packet, but it's an aggressive brownfield project on the old Cenex, and I'll leave it at that.
Old what?
Senex.
The old
Oh, okay.
Cenex.
I didn't know, okay.
The supervisor
You might
has,
have-
supervisor has background that she's gonna
Yeah,
send
it might be
to
in
the
your
board.
mailbox now. I was getting it ready before I came in.
But I think on the property, as far as I'm concerned, it's for sale, it has been for sale. Move forward on it, yeah.
Good, I'm glad you decided that, because the highest and best use is commercial development, and we need that money to help pay off the buildings, or however you see fit, but I know that that was the original intention, so
I can see that as a catalyst in that area too.
it really will be, yeah.
It could be.
Lost Creek has a lot of, vacant property up towards the front, and I know they have ideas for future expansion, but, we talked about the former carpet specialist building, but someone would have to acquire property from them, from Lost Creek, in order to make that property geometry right.
Either that or buy from, the lady next door.
Yeah, but yeah, I
And
mean,
she's getting up. I would say she's gonna be selling in not too distant future, because. I
yeah,
know.
staff's working hard to get back some of the revenue that we've had, reaching out, making connections with people that we know, and as you may have seen in the news, Pizza Hut did not extend
Yeah.
their lease, okay, or they were
They
pretty much shut
didn't,
out.
they turned down the lease or something like that, or?
Well, they're not renewing the lease because the Dash Downs want everybody out of there. That's the whole goal, is to empty out that space to redevelop it. We immediately got on the phone and sent, first of all, I called Steve Asplin and got their contact information from the Pizza Hut representative that they spoke to. Sent that up to Mike Conter, who's developed a lot in the township, and also let him know that we have a 5-acre piece of property just off the highway in case they may want to develop that. So, I'd like to pull Pizza Hut out here.
I know they're looking somewhere.
Hopefully bigger, they can go back to the buffet.
Well, and Mr. Crimmins and their group have that property east of GFS, which they're trying to gain a restaurant development in that area, something to kind of tie together those other uses in the area.
Maybe if we work on it, we can situate it directly next to the distillery. We can
Yeah, but what a benefit to Lost
The
Creek.
John Deere building.
What a benefit to Lost Creek. They don't have to drive and just walk over.
I'm going for my medicine, John.
Pizza and whiskey,
Yeah, there you go.
I'll take it. All right, anything else for me?
Well, thanks for making our meeting so short.
Yes.
Do it
That's
again.
good. Yes, sir.
We're talking this property, I know the township has other properties,
Yes.
and Randy was supposed to get us a map of everything, and you were working on something like that?
Yeah, you have it.
So-
Isaac created that, yeah, we have that.
I think that's something we all need to look at and see
Yeah.
where it's all at, what it's all
Can you
about.
just put it in the mailboxes
And,
so they can have it to kind of chew on?
Yep.
because I think the question is, first question, do we have any use for it? Is there any benefit for it? If not, let's take the next step and say, okay, how do we eliminate it and sell it?
Well, I know some of it is wetlands we can't do much with, but still.
I just had that conversation
But
with
we don't have
somebody
to,
from
the
the city.
developer might.
When I was in Ashland, we went through a process of looking at all of our park properties and doing deed research to figure out which ones were deed restrictions, had deed restrictions on them and which ones didn't. Because obviously, if you don't have a deed restriction, like if, you know, Miss Johnson gave this property back to the city of Ashland in 1927, and the deed says it can't be anything other than a park. Okay, well, you know you can't market that piece. But if there's other properties that don't have that, and it's an underutilized space, then you need to really consider, you know, do we really need that? What's the financial impact on maintenance and everything else you're doing to that property? And would it be more viable as a multifamily housing or any of the other land uses that you might need to accommodate because of growth or whatever? So, yeah, that's a process that I think the city needs to go through at some point too. Because there's a lot of park properties that are probably underutilized and could be redeveloped with other more viable uses that were back on the tax roll. And that was the exercise we went through a long time ago.
Okay.
Is there
Anything
anything
else?
else on the horizon that's coming up that you could relate to?
No, this brownfield project, you know, it's a 30-year deferment. But when we looked at all of the economic factors involved, the financial factors involved, you know, at first I cringed because that's a long payout. Remember, we did 13 years with Veritable B. But I think when you look at all these factors, and you'll have Andrew, who's great, from the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority here. You'll probably have Fred Grandchamp, because Fred and Chuck Oberstar are really the two that they own this property now. They've done some realignment of the boundary between Napa and themselves to facilitate a new shared driveway at that location when the property is redeveloped. That's a big deal for safety and for just general property circulation. But I think that you have the ability to gain more than one land use on this property because, you know, in general business or development district, the minimum lot size is only 20,000 square feet. Now, is anybody going to develop on something like that? Probably not. But with 4 acres, you could potentially have 4 separate developments or 2 more feasibly on the site. So, you know, you're still going to capture the taxes as they're coming in now. But in the future, when you come up that hill on the westbound, that's a really hot corner for us. You know, besides the ProBuild building or the ProBuild site, I really view that Cenex property as a very highly advantageous piece of property. And so, if the township board is in agreement with the Brownfield plan, that allows this contaminated gas station site to be cleaned up and made ready, which makes that property even more valuable, because really the only value on that property right now is the land value. All the assets that are above ground really aren't worth much because they're antiquated, old, and you have some metals in the soil. So we feel that the best tool to accommodate that is to use a brownfield to clean up the site. Those funds would be paid back over time, and then after that period, you know, the township would capture that incremental increase in what's developed there. With the trend of what's going on in the township, the new types of structures that are being built, the value of those structures that are being built, I really, after a lot of consideration, think it's a good thing, and staff's recommending approval of that. There's a little bit of a hot button push on this because they're trying to take advantage of 2018 values instead of when it becomes uncapped in 2019, which would occur in mid-May, or early end of May. So it's a lot to ask, but I think that if you guys look at it all together as a whole, you'll see that it's probably a really good investment for the township to make into the future. But you'll see all that next week, and we'll present this all over again. So.
It'll be in your packet. There's a 2-page bullet itemization from Ann Giroux.
I'll send
It'll be
you
in
the
the packet.
brownfield plan, which has been approved already at the, so there's 3 steps to it, a brownfield plan. One has to be approved by the authority itself, which they have. The next one is for the township board to approve it. And then the third one is for them to actually take action, do the work, and then get compensated over time for those eligible costs, which would be remediating soils, demolition of the buildings, removal of the tanks, a lot of work, which Mr. Oberstar thankfully, does in his sleep. So it's a good private-public partnership, in my opinion.
That's worked well for Barrow and Beam.
And,
Yeah.
and that keeps us from getting into the nightmare that the city has with their properties.
So
You know,
that
what
26
Fred-
pages, that's what I just put in their mailboxes, if that's what.
Oh, you already did? Okay, great. So you have a hard copy. I will transmit via email the digital copy of the brownfield plan. What you're gonna get in your packet is a memo from me, a memo from Ann Giroux, and actually not a memo from Ann Giroux, it's just a 2-page summary. We asked her to surmise, a 26-page document into something that was more palatable for you initially to look at. So, when you think about brownfield, you're like, oh, I'm gonna lose taxes for 30 years. But in reality, you actually have other taxes that are coming through and into the township that would normally not be in the township. So I'm not an expert in that, all those numbers and stuff, but when that comes through and Ann speaks to you, they'll be able to kind of quantify that for
The
you.
more good things that happen up there, they'd like to sell the rest of this property around here too.
It's exactly right, Pete. It's making an investment in this property, which is a marquee property, and then allowing other things around it to kind of blossom as well.
So if it don't happen, you're gonna just see, it's gonna basically sit there and do
If it
nothing.
doesn't happen, they're gonna flip it, and we're not gonna be any better off than we are now.
It's just gonna sit there, yeah.
And I hope you would consider what Chuck and Fred have done with this property, because it's pretty extensive. Not to say that we ever give favors to anybody, because we don't, we treat everybody equally. But I think that they've proven to be good developers, and even from an environmental standpoint, from a planner's standpoint, environmentally cleaning up the site is the right thing to do. You've got, it's not a leaky underground storage tank site anymore, but it does have some metals in the soil and in the groundwater, and those are fairly easy to clean up in the grand scheme of things. Cap it off, and now you've got a shiny new corner development that's gonna be worth a lot of money to somebody when it's all said.
But they're not gonna cap them off, they're gonna pull those tanks.
Well, they are, but they're gonna, like any site that has contamination on it, you're gonna have to put a certain,
Right.
Clean fill.
They'll remediate
clean
that.
fill, right?
Yeah.
And get that site ready, so it's a way to incentivize redevelopment is what it is. And right now, if they don't get it, they're simply just gonna flip the property and somebody else is gonna be in the same boat, so.
Is it currently for sale?
No, it's been purchased,
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
And what they're trying to do is make it right for redevelopment.
okay.
And they take a little pride in what they do. As you can see, some of the buildings that's going up.
Absolutely. And I remember when the movie theater, I don't know how many of you guys were around at that time, but the movie theater had an idea for the 40 acres that's up the hill here. Of course, they want a ton of money for that. So they were about to go visit the city of Marquette. We had them in the conference room at the old building. I said, can you give me 10 minutes? I just want to make a phone call. I'll be right back. I called Chuck Oberstar, and the movie theater's over there. So Chuck's been really easy to work with. He's flexible on his financing when it comes to people that want to develop. I like working with him because he's straightforward. He's not holding things close to his chest. He's putting it all out there. But it's taken time to develop those relationships with those guys too, to have them trust staff and know that we're working in their best interest. So yeah, when things come up and we see opportunities, we make those little phone calls to try to facilitate stuff to happen.
So I think the flip side of that is, and there's not much we can do about people, what they do with their property, you know, other than our ordinances and certain zoning and restrictions. But I think it would be prudent for the board to make it clear, in my opinion, that putting another gas station on there is not the best use of the property.
I'd be careful with that.
I know.
I don't agree with that.
Well,
Well-
yeah, I mean,
Okay,
You know?
one of the people that they're talking to is Quick Trip. And if you've been through Ashland recently, or if you visited a Quick Trip, they're not your typical, you know,
No,
gas station, C-store. They have everything. And they're very nice, they're very well kept, and they're worth a lot of money. I understand where you're coming from, but I think that we're,
environmentally.
Yeah.
yes. I don't care about the business.
Sure.
It's putting the tanks back in the ground, we're still making the payments tax-wise, and now we're going right back to the same thing that could be the same problem before the 30 years is up. That's
Yeah.
my only objection.
yeah, no, and that's a fair comment. But I think when you have a property that's zoned general business, there's so much that's available to be developed in a general business. And we don't wanna, I guess,
I think you can.
you don't wanna cookie cutter them into something. What I've been having the conversation with, and I hope to have another one with Fred on Tuesday night, is to look at a multi-use, mixed-use development that could be taxed on multiple levels, you know. Let's go first floor retail, let's go second floor office, let's go third floor residential, in a very compact scenario. And that would really bode well for the township, because according to Dulce, you're taxing on 3 levels instead of 1. So that could be helpful too. And, you know, they don't have anything definitive yet. But I think if we were able to have those conversations with them, maybe we could channel them out of a single use and try to get them into a mixed use scenario.
It's a good piece of property for someone if it's. stood
It's
there.
beautiful,
Yeah.
it's flat, it's up on the hill,
It's a perfect corner.
yeah, it's a great corner. So there's a couple other implications I don't know if we can.
And they were gonna keep that back driveway, right, off the right street, so.
One of them, can you move over to that area?
I can. Yeah.
Yeah, so as a result of the highway project, so you see the 2 driveways that are really close together between Napa and
Yeah.
Senex. So those would be consolidated into one driveway. And what they're talking about having is a road, a private, a commercial driveway that kind of goes up and then comes out at that northern driveway on Wright Street. One of the things that's going to happen as a result of the highway project is that you're going to have a non-motorized pathway, proper 10-footer, coming all the way across from the roundabout here, and it'll terminate at this corner. So one of the things we like to work on, obviously, is connecting to our Safe House to School infrastructure that we installed on Venture, which is further up, and North Star Academy, ultimately. But this property line goes way up here. So if we can work with, and they've already done one component, which is the consolidated driveways, but if we can work with the new developer, or even Chuck and those guys, to install a pathway to the north property line, that's almost halfway to get to where we need to be with our pathway. And then the road commission has discussed getting us the rest of the way there. That would mean that anybody south of the highway with the tunnel in Bishop Woods or down 492 could potentially access the northern part of the township via the tunnel with a safe pathway, which is huge for quality of life improvement in the township. So lots of stuff going on kind of behind the scenes. And then when it's ready to be brought to the board, I don't know, I'm not really a salesman by any means, but I believe that my job is to bring you deals and you thumb them up or thumb them down, just all the time. And that's what we're trying to do for you.
Anything else, gang?
We took care of the one piece of business as far as I'm concerned in that.
It's nice to have the
All sounds
overview,
encouraging.
because that depth of information helps us too, to make sure this is what we wanna do. Okay,
All right,
Start by
Thanks,
taking
Jake.
that look sign down.
I'll get on that right away. Thanks, guys. Have a
yep,
good night.
thank you. Well, we don't even really need a motion on a work session,
Nope,
so it's 1:48.
okay.
You just wrap your gravel and you're done.
You're gonna put that on the agenda for the road meeting?
No, we're not.